Pickleball as a sport is constantly evolving. With new paddle technology and way more advanced players, there's plenty of new ways to get advantages. So today, I'm going to take you through 10 tips that I've been playing around with more recently. These are things that might not have been as popular or important 2 years ago, but now they're becoming staples in the game. Helping me today, I have my sister Kimmy. The first tip I'm going to take you through, guys, is a new shot that's getting super popular called the hybrid third. So as you probably know, the third shot is the shot that you hit as the server right after your serve. And generally, your two options on that shot are the drop, where I hit it into the kitchen and tried to get it to land in front of my opponent, and the drive, where I hit it hard at my opponent and try to win with power. And the hybrid third is a mixture between the drop and the drive. And when you'd use that is when your opponent is not getting in super fast. So if I hit a really deep serve to Kimmy and she doesn't get in quickly, I can sort of roll the ball at her feet with a little bit more power than a normal drop. And when I do that, I get the ball at her feet. So let me show you how that looks again. I hit a deep serve to Kimmy. She's coming in slowly, so I can go more at her feet, more aggressively, to take control of the point. If I was to drop there and Kimmy's in that position, she actually can just move forward through it and attack that shot. So on our hybrid third, it just looks like this. I'm not hitting it super hard, but if I get it right at her feet, I can probably move forward, and I might even get her to pop it up like that to where I can attack. My next two tips, though, involve the serve, and that's if you're going for topspin serves, which a lot of players go for, and that's generally the most important serve to know, you can actually get a lot out of hitting them a little bit higher. And the reason for that is when you hit them higher, the effect of the topspin is a little bit more dramatic off the bounce. So if generally you're hitting your serves 2 feet over the net, I encourage you to try hitting them 3 or 4 feet over the net with a little more spin, maybe even a little slower. It'll increase your consistency, and it can actually make it tricky on your opponents. And on top of that, you can even add on what's called the banana serve. It's a little hard, but it's essentially the reverse of a screwball. So the banana serve is essentially where I come out like this, and it's kind of like topspin, but it has a little side spin on it. So I can hit that higher serve with that crazy spin, and if you can get that to land deep, that makes it really challenging for your opponents to hit a good return. So you can even bend it around the net if you do it good. So you see there, getting a little bit of curve. And if you do it really well, you can actually pull your opponents away from where they're standing. There, I literally got it to bend around the center line. So try hitting your serves a little bit higher when you go with topspin. Maybe add on that banana spin, and you're going to make things really challenging for your opponents on the return. Hey guys, later in the video, I'm going to go over how to curve your ATPs and your volleys too. So stay tuned if you want to see that. So my next tip involves the drop shot, where I hit the ball really short where my opponent is back. So not to be confused with the drop, where I'm hitting it in the kitchen from the baseline. The drop shot's when I'm up and I hit the ball really short. So watch these two drop shots and tell me which one looks like it'd be easier to react to. This is the first one. This is my second one. So if you said the second one looked harder, you're right, because I'm doing something that I stole from tennis, which is called deception. So when you're going for a drop shot, if it looks like you're going to hit a drop shot, your opponent has that extra split second they need to start moving forward. But if it looks like you're about to hit the ball hard, your opponent might actually start backing up. And by the time they see that the ball's going short, they don't have enough time to get there because, as you probably know, the pickleball doesn't bounce very high. So some of the best times to go for drop shots are actually in times where your opponent expects you to hit really hard. So if Kimmy hits me a medium-high ball that's not very fast, she might be expecting me to go for a hard shot, but by going for that drop shot, I can take her by surprise. Keep in mind though, normally you do want to go hard in that situation. The drop shot is something you want to pull out maybe once or twice a game, because if you do it too often, your opponents are going to get used to it, and they're going to start anticipating it and moving forward earlier. And guys, one bonus tip to think about when you're going for drop shots is that going for angles generally is a little more effective because you have a lot more room, right? I actually hit that ball a lot harder. If I was to hit that ball down the line, it would have landed in the middle of the court. So when you're going for an angle drop shot, just makes things a little bit easier, and it's easier to keep the ball farther away from your opponent. So I encourage you to try that with the angle. The next tip on the list though has to do with our return, and it's that you should try to go for some topspin returns. So generally in pickleball a few years ago, almost every player that was at a high level would go for slice returns, which look like this. So I'm sort of chipping at the ball as I'm coming forward. But more and more players these days are starting to use topspin, which looks like this. So they're very similar compact motion, but I'm coming over the ball And what that does is it makes it a little more challenging for your opponent to hit a third shot because my ball is spinning towards them, so it makes it harder for them to get topspin if you think about the way that the ball is going to be spinning off of their paddle. This week, I went to a 5.0 tournament, and no joke, I think about half the players there were using the topspin return on every single serve. So it's definitely really gaining popularity. You've probably already seen players do it in person. Just to show you one more example, it's definitely easier to do off of the forehand side. So you might need to cheat over to your forehand side more. On a backhand, you might need to use two hands in order to do this. So if you don't have a confident two-handed backhand, what you can do is just cheat a little bit over to your forehand side to where I can almost guarantee that I get a forehand because I'm standing a little bit farther over and I have that extra space. So if you haven't tried the topspin return, give it a shot and you might have really good results with your opponent's third shots. And another cool way to gain an advantage on your return is with what's called hand signals. So if you see Kimmy right now, she's giving me a signal on where to return and whether or not she's going to poach or stay. So you see, when she does that, we can actually run plays on our opponent or we can switch sides, and it gives us a pretty big advantage because we can actually trick our opponents a little bit. So we're going to go over that later, so stay tuned if you want to see that. The next tip I want to go through, though, is one of my favorites, and it's a trick that I've used for years, and it's that before your games, you want to do something to fire up your hand speed. So a drill, right? So one of my favorite ways to do that is a drill where me and my partner come inside the kitchen line, and we start volleying with each other, starting off slow, and as the rally progresses, we go faster and faster until we actually can't react anymore. So the rally is actually meant to end, right? And when we do this, we just really get warmed up with reacting to hard shots. I'm sure you've come out on court before where someone hits a ball at you really hard and you're just not ready for it. So one of the best ways to prepare yourself for that is by doing hand speed drills before your games. And if you don't have a partner, you can use a wall or the Dink Master as well. But you really just want to be doing something like this where you're going really fast with your volleys. So keep that in mind before next time you play. And guys, if you like our content, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. This really helps us grow. And unfortunately, only about 10% of people who watch our content like or subscribe. And when you do this, it actually spreads our content to more players and helps grow the sport. So in a few years, if you love pickleball, this is going to help the sport grow a lot more. So make sure to like and subscribe. So now, guys, I want to talk about hand signals, which I mentioned earlier. So with hand signals, generally, your partner gives you either one or two signals. The first one, which is less common, is where they tell you where to hit the ball in the court. So based off what finger my partner sticks out, I will hit to that part of the court. So if Kimmy was to tell me to hit to the right part of the court, and if Drew serves me, I'm going to aim for that part of the court. Or when she sticks it out to the right, usually she's saying that because she wants that player to hit the third shot. So the next part of the signal, though, is based on whether or not you're going to poach, stay, or fake. So if Kimmy is to poach, she'll stick out her hand completely. She'll open her hand. And what that tells me is that we're going to switch sides. So after I hit my return, I'm going to run to the kitchen on the other side of the court. So that is called a switch or a poach, but I guess more of a switch. A stay is essentially where Kimmy closes her fist. So that's how you call out a stay. She closes her fist, and all I'm doing there is going in like a normal return. A fake, though, which is very uncommon, but you can do this and you might be able to trick your opponent, is where Kimmy sort of pump fakes that she's going to switch sides, but she doesn't. The fake, though, is a little less common, and that's where you pretend like you're going to switch, but you don't. So you call that out by opening and closing your hand really quickly, and how that looks is like this. So I'm going to hit my return, pretend like I'm going to the other side, but I end up on the same side. So what they might do there is hit to Kimmy since they think she's switching sides, but she's there and can kill the ball. So these are a little confusing to get the hang of, but once you do, they're a very effective way to coordinate against your opponents when you're the returning team. Next tip, though, is that you should start adding a little bit of curve on your shots, just like on our banana serve, that same outward spin. And there's two main instances where I'm starting to see players use it. The first is the ATP. This one's definitely a little bit challenging. So on your ATP, you can sort of curve around the ball. And what that does is it actually bends the ball back into the court a little bit. So you're starting to see some pros doing this, some 5-0 players. Not the easiest shot to get the hang of, but you can start giving that a shot and you might see some results with it. The next time that you can be using curve is on your roll volley. So if you know what a roll volley is, it's off of when your opponent hits a slower ball like a drop, and you're usually leaning over, hitting a shot like this. So to add curve, all you need to do is drop down your wrist a little bit more. You can get a little bit of a side spinny roll volley. And what that does is when it bounces, it might jet off a little bit to the side and make it really hard for your opponent to hit a drop. So the curve on the roll volley looks like this. So usually, like I said, it's off of a drop. And as you can see there, I get a little bit of that sideways bounce, which can actually make my opponents mess up. So this is definitely easier to hit than the ATP curve. And I'm seeing a lot of pros actually starting to do this more. So give it a shot in your games. And comment below if you already have. I think it's pretty effective. And the next thing I want to talk about is that if you haven't done this before, you should try putting some weight on your paddle. This is one of the things that can make the biggest difference in the least amount of time. So one of my favorite places to recommend players to put weight on, usually in the form of tungsten tape or lead tape, is right above the corner. So you see this corner here. This is the point where you get the highest increase of twist weight with the least increase of swing weight. So twist weight is how much it takes for your paddle to go like this. Swing weight is how much it takes your paddle to go like this. So twist weight is what increases your sweet spot. So by putting the weight here, you make your sweet spot bigger in your paddle without making it too heavy to swing it around. So this is a great spot to put your weight if you feel like the sweet spot on your paddle is small. So highly recommend trying that out. And my next tip, guys, is that if you get lobbed, I see way too many players making the same mistake. It's that if you get lobbed, you don't want to move backwards like this. So, what I did wrong there was I backpedaled. And the problem with this is that, one, it's a lot slower than the technique I'm about to show you. Two, a lot of players lose their balance when they're doing this, fall back, get hurt. We don't want that to happen. So what you want to do is the second you get lobbed, your first instinct is to turn your shoulders and start running back. So I don't want to be running back like this. I want to be running back like this while I'm looking up at the ball. That's infinitely faster than going like this. Also, you get the added bonus that your shoulders are turned, your elbow is back. You get that power from your rotation. So when I get lobbed, I can put my elbow back and hit my overhead, or my smash as some call it, as if I'm throwing a ball. And by doing that, you get like 10 times as much power. So if you still suffer from the problem of backpedaling, I highly encourage you to try moving back like this when you get lobbed. It might take a little bit to get the reflex of doing that down, but if you force yourself to do it for a long enough time, it'll be way better and you'll just be a way better player. And my next tip, guys, is that if you're going for speed ups from the kitchen, you can get a huge advantage by taking them out of the air. I see a lot of players who let the ball bounce and they go for a speed up from behind the kitchen line. But if you were to take that same shot, lean over the kitchen and accelerate from here, in this case, I'm probably about 15 feet away from my opponent. Here, I might be 11 feet away from my opponent. So they have to react 30% faster to get that ball back. So if you're going to be aggressive with the speed up, it doesn't have to be the case every time, but a lot of the time it's a good idea to try to do that out of the air. So to show you one quick example of that, it's usually happening off of a dink. So if Kimmy hits me a dink, I can accelerate with that roll volley technique, and that takes a lot of time away from my opponent. Hey guys, if you like this style where I go quickly through 10 tips, in this next video, I go over 10 quick strategies that'll help you boost your game.